Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of Olympus Rises, episode 9. Glad you all could be here. Season 2. Olympus Rises, season 2, episode 9. Glad you all could be here. Let's just get right to it. Hello. So, as we begin our transit, eventually on your way out of the system, Fortune, go at some point you go back up to the cockpit to like get ready to calculate the jump. So what does that scene look like?
I think Go-Go marches up to you and she doesn't say anything, but she just does the like up, like pointing up, like get out to the seat, out.
Points over towards the tactical console.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably look at her and be like, well, we're on our way. You're welcome. And then they get up and go over to the tactical console.
Yeah, absolutely.
She just huffs and sits down, puts her headphones on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I once I sat down, I'd scream back at her. I'd be like, nothing's broken this time.
You had to remind her of the last time, didn't you?
Well, I had to show her that I'm doing better than I did last time.
True story. So, as you make it to the edge of the system, edge of the gravity well, and you have the clearance to drill into space, I believe that your destination is 0308, right? Because we're going back to Westwind to both drop off our cargo and drop off our cargo and to check on some other things that have been going on, and also to perhaps talk about what to do next.
Maybe find a real hospital.
Yeah.
Westwind probably has one, but it's probably not free, since probably pretty busy right now as well. So there's options there, but any
and all.
Yeah. Essentially, any TL4 planet would be sufficient. Obviously, anyone who specializes would be better and give Felix a better chance at a return to normalcy.
I don't think we have enough time to travel across the galaxy once again.
That was my my concern, is the timing more than anything else.
So why don't we get the jump out of the way first? So Go-Go, can you roll me a navigation with intelligence, and you need a 7 or better. No problem. Pretty hard for you to fail those right now.
Okay. So that means we're definitely traveling for 3 days.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm assuming Felix is under long-term medical care.
Yeah, it's probably better, just like it is with a burn victim, to just keep him sedated.
Well, yeah, I'm saying because to use medkits for long-term, it says in the rules, after each day of granting long-term recuperative care, roll a 2d6 per patient treated. On a 12, the kit runs out of some vital pharmaceutical and becomes useless.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So
it will essentially give him an additional like +1 per day of recovery. And you could do it on both him and Chan, or let's see. Yeah, I would say you could do it on anybody who you're keeping in there full time. Anyone who's like fully resting in the med bay. So definitely the two of those. Anyone else who wants to like spend the whole day resting in the med bay could also grant bonus from that. Okay, good. So
I'm back at max health.
It's true. It's true.
Good for you.
So why don't you roll? Are you gonna do this every day, Dr. Fisher?
Well, certainly for Felix, I feel that I have to. So definitely for Felix every day until we get him to hospital.
Okay.
I think Chan I'll do for the first day until he's fully woken up.
Okay.
And yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So why don't you roll 2d6 for Felix 3 times at a minimum? Okay, good. So Felix is going to recover, and Felix is going to recover 6 hit points over the course of the travels as opposed to just the 3. Now Chan's gonna get 1 health just for the 1 day of recovery, which puts him at 1, which means he's able to do things. And for Chan, it basically means he's at full capacity, right?
Yeah.
So you can choose to do it on him as well, or you can hold off on
that. Yeah, let's hold off.
Okay, sure. So at the end of the first day, you're keeping Felix sedated, obviously, so he's not really able to communicate. But at the end of the first day, Chan becomes conscious again. And I assume, Gogo, you're there when that happens.
Yeah, I'd be running back and forth basically between making sure the ship's going where it needs to go and spending all of the rest of my waking hours in the med bay.
Yeah, and probably some of the sleeping ones even.
Sleeping? I sleep?
Right, exactly. So Chan's eyes flutter open, and Dr. Fisher, you're probably there, monitoring, vital signs and stuff. You're pretty much locked in the med bay as you are usually. But Chan's eyes flutter open, and he does a thing where he kind of looks around briefly, and then he goes to sit up. You guys didn't restrain him, did you?
I wouldn't have, but
I think we've figured out at this point that none of the restraints we have would actually do any good. If
there's no sense wasting good restraints on Chan.
Fair. So he just kind of sits up and does that thing where just it goes from completely prone to 90 degrees without any other movement. So it's kind of that weird I'm gonna use the rising from the dead joke, but kind of just sits up and looks around kind of curiously, and his eyes fall on you, Gogo, and he says, Gogo, we are back on the ship.
Yes. Are you okay? Are you okay? How do you feel?
He looks down at his hands and he clenches in a fist and looks at the back of his hands and continues the motion. And he says, "Yes, I feel fine. What am I doing in here?"
I get a torch and give him a eye exam, and I assume they're back to.
It's cute that you called it a torch.
For us Americans, that sounded a lot more dramatic.
It sure did.
I was like, He's fine, Fisher.
No, you don't need to burn him. You don't need to burn him, Fisher. It's fine.
No, we have to be sure. We can't take the risk. Burn him.
I take a flashlight and I assume his eyes are back.
You've been hurts you to say flashlight. I can tell it actually pains you inside.
Team, we've done Will a disservice. He's been away so long, he's turned back into a Brit. We need to.
I have, yes.
We need to rein him back in a little bit. So yes, you take a light and you shine it in his eyes, and they dilate normally, as you would expect. And yeah, they appear normal. He appears to be his normal self. But he looks at the two of you and he says, "What happened?"
Well, there were a lot of bats, Chan, and they kind of swarmed us. And you got a lot of them though, buddy. You certainly. And she has horrible flashbacks of him ripping the head off of a bat. And she kind of
using one as a flail. Yeah,
gulps down the vomit. She just says, "You know what? You and a couple of the rest of us, Fisher here included, passed out for a little bit, but we got you all back, and everybody's fine. She kind of like glances over at her dad and back at him and says, yeah, we're good. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, his head kind of falls and he stares at the floor for a moment and he says, I remember the large creature, but it's blurry after that.
Yeah, Chan, there's a lot going on. It's probably nothing. Don't worry about it.
He looks at you and he just nods. Dr. Fisher, do you say anything else or do you let him believe that?
Yeah, I'm just currently calculating how fast I could possibly get my research done before something really bad happens.
Yeah, and I think that he nods and he says, oh, yes. Oscar has spoken before of memory loss during combat. Perhaps this is what he means?
Yes,
well,
yes, I'm sure. And she like looks over at Dr. Phil like, don't. Don't.
It's absolutely nothing to worry about, Chan. All that matters is you're up and awake and you can now help around the ship once more. Right?
Don't like it.
What don't you like, Chan?
Yeah.
I remember almost everything I've ever encountered before. Except for, well, my very early childhood. And when I first was assigned to my mistress, my first one. Before that, it is a blur, but since then, I always remembered everything. Do not remember.
Well, Chan, hopefully we're gonna work real hard to make sure that never happens again, okay? It's gonna be fine. And she like rests a reassuring hand on his arm.
Yeah, and I think that he flinches like briefly, as if he was in some trance and you've like broken him out of it. And he kind of flinches and sees you, like any contact with you is always weird for Chan. And so he looks down and he says, "Yes, I'm sure it is fine. Dr. Fisher is a good doctor." Oscar chuckles from the other room. Yeah, and so I think that like he goes to like he swings his legs off the table and begins like pulling leads off of his chest and stuff like that. He's beginning to look a little bit like the Frankenstein monster, just in case anyone was curious. Where like he's patched up, but nothing ever really heals.
Yeah, I think Go just like takes him by the arm and just like, okay, well, let's take it slow and let's get you some clothes. Cover this up.
Yeah, and I think that as he like as he drops down and puts his weight on his feet, there's a brief moment where he kind of like he doesn't stumble, but he kind of like tests the weight a little bit, and then he kind of like cracks his neck and he says, "I feel fine, and yes, I will get dressed." And he proceeds to follow you out, I assume, to go get some clothes for him.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, everybody else that has damage, you can go ahead and recover 3 health.
Done.
For the 3 days you'll be traveling. And I'll put 2 more on Chan. So, with Chan having successfully reawakened and not been feral, which is great news. Now's the part where I go around the table and find out what everybody's been doing for this particular journey. So I'll start with Fortune.
Pretty much I've just recollected all the weapons and I'm in the armory cleaning everything and organizing and reloading. I'm trying to get back to my normalcy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to make a progression check thing?
I don't have any more weapons to make. I think I've made
okay.
all 4 of the weapons we keep on in stock to
Gotcha.
the upgraded versions.
Cool. So in your return to normalcy, I think that one of the days, probably like on the second day or whatever, Oha visits you in the armory. And she does a thing where like she stands up, the door slides open, and she stands outside and she kind of like knocks on the side panel. Can I come in?
Yeah, come on in.
Yeah, and as she enters, she kind of like, she's holding her hands kind of tightly in front of her, and she looks around. She says, "Well, you've done quite some work on the place."
Well, if it's not organized, how am I going to find anything when I really need to get to it?
Yes, indeed. I was wondering if you might be able to help me with something.
You want to learn how to shoot?
No, I'm perfectly, well, I'm fine in that area, but I was wondering if you could explain to me what exactly happened. And I wasn't there for it, I was watching the ship, but there were some very curious signals coming from where you all traveled into. I was afraid you were not coming back, and you seem to be the most, well, the most honest of the bunch when it comes to detailing incidents.
Well, we fought some worms, and then we fought some bats, and the bats didn't like us very much. And then Dr. Fisher got hurt, and then everyone got hurt, and then and then we ran out.
And this man you brought aboard, that is Ogo's father, if I'm to understand it correctly.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. Is he alive? Anyways, yeah, we picked him up in one of the caves.
Ah, I see. Well, seems like you all had a grand adventure. Was Oscar injured?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. He doesn't like to admit it, but when he's hurt, we're just making sure that he's all right.
He seemed to be fine. I think I think Fisher patched him up well.
Yeah, she just kind of like nods rapidly, like does yeah. Oh, okay. So what are you working on now?
I'm just kind of tidying up.
Huh. Well, I'll leave you to it, I guess.
All right. Let me know if you need anything else.
I will, certainly, and same to you.
All right. And I just start breaking down the next weapon.
Yeah, and she leaves out of the door and departs into the corridors. So I want to talk to Oscar next. Oscar, your process for the next 3 days is going to be what exactly?
I think he, I mean, at some point he's going to go inform Amelia at least that they're back en route and make sure that she hasn't, stowed a copy of herself anyplace on the ship as a surprise for later. But yeah, he's gonna kind of do the rounds and occasionally check back on this valuable but otherwise completely not understood item that he brought on the ship, just to make sure it's not hatching as near as he can tell,
Right.
or like
Yeah, and
yeah, so he's like got there's probably like a little app on his compad that's like whatever airlock it is. He's just got his thumb on the like
sure,
vent airlock 13
just in case
he hears anything.
It is
coming
indeed
out of
airlock
that.
13, so there you go. Perfect.
Oh shit, is it really? That was a total stab in the dark.
It really is airlock 13 that's right
Are you-
next to it.
Huh.
Yeah, see?
I believe you. I had to have seen that. There's no way that I just guessed that. I was just pulling that out of my subconscious.
That's pretty good. I mean, it is the best number, so.
True.
Yeah, lucky airlock 13. Which one did Chan get shot in? That's neither here nor there.
That would be right by airlock 1.
Okay.
Where he got shot.
So yeah, he's kind of just checking things out, and especially after he was patched up and then sustained no further, luckily you might say, sustained no more damage getting that thing. At some point he would go and touch base with Oha, just because she seems to be invested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that probably happens pretty early on.
Right.
Probably once you're like in drill space, she probably shows up at your quarters or wherever you're at, and says, "It is good that you all returned safely."
Safely, probably an overreach, but everyone is going to make it.
Yes, that is good. And were you injured? I noticed that all of the crew had some form of injury when they returned.
Fisher took the worst of it. I'm not sure if you've taken a look at Felix, but I have no reason to complain compared to the rest of the crew.
Yes, I suspect as much.
The suit wasn't an impulsive purchase. This is the line of work that I knew I would be. I knew I would need it.
Yes, indeed. I wanted to talk to you about something. I think it might be time for us to visit Raymondi again.
Soon as Amelia is off the ship, I am open to suggestions.
I say that because I fear that perhaps I have not been as open to your plan as I could have been in the past. But I think that we should proceed with it. And I'm not much use cooped up on the ship, as it were.
I can't disagree with that, and neither do I think we should risk you coming along, despite your talents. The business with Amelia in the first place had me thinking the same thing.
Yes,
entirely too risky.
You understand how I feel about that girl. What she is or isn't, for lack of a better. But I wish to meet this contact to evaluate for myself whether or not he can be trusted. From what you have said to me, it does not leave me with much hope.
I hadn't written off you killing him out of spite the first chance you got, but
well,
if you wish to talk to him, please.
Opinions and things change, and if we are to work together, then we must put the past where it belongs.
If anyone can agree on that, you and I would be a good starting point.
Good. And
anyone else, I'm sure, can get on board if we are able, of all people.
And you trust me, don't you, Oscar?
This began as a gamble. Sure, you are acutely aware of that. Now, yes, say that I trust you.
Good. Because I wouldn't want you to be trying to micromanage my actions. Plans are set into motion. I do have skills when it comes to certain things. A lot of times I wouldn't be able to reach out and contact you for guidance, let's say.
After all of our discussions, I believe we have the same goals. So long as I think you're working to achieve them, would not presume to tell you day to day what I think about how you're going about that.
Good. Then it's settled. And with that, she begins to like get up and leave from your quarters where she found you.
Yeah, I think that's Oscar is going to have some things that he's going to work on in the meantime toward that, but I think for now that's wrapped up.
So your visit with Amelia, when you go up there to the third cargo bay on the upper decks of the ship, and when you arrive, you see that Amelia's alone. Neko isn't there. And she doesn't have any like of the like homemade IVs hooked up to her. And instead of sitting like kind of weakly in the corner of the room, I think when you arrive, she appears to be standing kind of in the middle of the room. And she's staring at the bulkhead that is like directly out into space, but just like intently staring at it. She doesn't acknowledge your presence at all when you enter.
Yeah. He maybe just like, does the open door frame knock.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when you do that, she doesn't give any physical sign that she's recognized you. And her back is kind of to you. And she just says, "Yes, Oscar. What is it that you..."
We've taken care of the emergency situation.
Yes.
Currently en route back to Westwind to return you to your father.
There is another one on board. He is close to death.
Hopefully we reach Westwind in time. I believe he's stable, but you're not wrong.
What is his value?
Paternal.
I think for the first time in your brief history together, she laughs. She's just, so not very much then. Would it not be better to simply end his existence? It could be done painlessly.
We will see what the hospital has to say about his prospects. He's currently in a coma. We'll evaluate. Not my decision to make, though.
Whose is it?
You're curious. Why? This doesn't impact you.
I don't like having weakness on board.
You'll have to endure it till we get back to Westwind.
I suppose. And as you're kind of standing there in the silence, she turns her head and looks at you. And as she turns to you, now you can see her face is not veiled by her hair anymore. And you can see her eyes returning to normal. Like from demon black eyes, kind of returning to normal. And she says, it's in Tan, so you don't understand it, but she shouts a command. You can tell it's a command. And she is looking at your feet, and you can see that Neko is like sniffing you and is like got his mouth open to bite you. And then she shouts the command, and he just like recoils and trots back to her.
Do what you can to keep him out of the medbay, if you'd be so kind.
I think she just shrugs at that and goes back over to. She slowly paces back over to her corner. And takes.
Is there anything else you need while we're en route?
No. I should have enough supplies to make it.
Glad to hear that. And he turns to, back out of the room.
Yeah. So with that being completed, let's talk to Gogo real quick. So Gogo, once Chan is awake, simply just Felix that is in the med bay. So we've determined you spend a lot of time there for Chan, but do you spend a lot of time there for Felix as well?
I would say that any of the time that, like, when the rest of the crew is asleep, I think that that's when she's sitting in the med bay with him, just in the quiet by herself.
Gotcha. And the rest of the time that you spend then, what is it doing?
Researching hospitals first.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. Do you want to make a computers check to see if you can locate some hospitals?
I mean, obviously Westwind first, but
yeah, so this is like
not really gonna be an option. Do I have any other options? Is there any other place we can go? Like that.
Yeah, so the way it works is any TL4 planet would be sufficient. This role would be mostly determined if there's any like specialties where people might be able to do a better job, or
acid burn units,
right? Yeah, or like facial reconstruction specialists,
cosmetic surgeons.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So why don't you roll a computers check with intelligence in this scenario? Okay. Do you want to reroll?
Yeah, I haven't rolled anything this hour, so
yeah, go for it. Nice. Cool. So you can get two options. So I will remind you that you know some already. That's part of this. So first of all, obviously Eurypylos is the best option, right? Like they're literally a planet made of doctors. They would obviously be the absolute best, and I think that you have knowledge that there are, because you did a lot of this research too when you were looking to help save Chan, right? So it's kind of
probably I'm just like sifting back through that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's probably why it's
you're compounding on that. So one of the options that kind of you run across is in 0507. The system where Chan actually got injured. There is Nasia. Now Nasia is a tech level 4 planet, but they're also they're out of contact. They're kind of recluses. But the one thing you guys determined previously was that they have highly advanced medical knowledge, rivaling or even surpassing that of Eurypylos, but they're not as open to sharing it like Eurypylos is. So that's definitely like one of the options. It's also far closer than Eurypylos, which is another good thing to consider here.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to see if I could gain from this too was just like a name or two of the doctors that we're actually going to at Westwind, just so I can ask for like have a name ready of somebody to try to ask for, just to try to expedite that process. Because as we know, there is a war going on, so just being like, hey, we have somebody who needs help versus, hey, I'm looking for this specific doctor. Can you please direct us towards them? That kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I can give you that for one of your selections here. So in Westwind, you in fact you probably recall a conversation. In like as you're sifting through, you see a name, and it triggers a memory of you and Bay, right? He was probably talking about this like really awesome doctor that is, in the Westwind Corporation, and she always does like fantastic work. He's seen her do like miracles. Now he's an old country boy, so his version of miracles may be far different than others' version of miracles. But her name is Izinya. In here. So Lizinia is she's a doctor that works for Westwind. She's actually a member of the like Westwind Armed Services. I'm using air quotes because they don't really have like a standing navy. They basically just have a bunch of mercenaries who work for them. And she's pretty high ranking. So she probably has her hands full, but she's the best in the business. And through your computer check, the article you probably come across is it's probably one of those like bio pieces from the news stations on Sorn about how this doctor has been instrumental in saving as many Tan refugees as they can from all of like the horrific laser scarring and battle wounds, and all these civilians owe her their lives at this point. Spaceships are Navy for sure. Absolutely, for sure. I think that if there were the equivalent of an Air Force, it would be like the fighter pilots that then come out of the carrier ships. Or like ground-based Air Force as well.
Every sci-fi thing I've ever encountered or space is always a Navy.
Yeah, always a Navy. So
good question.
No, it absolutely was a good question. It's like one of those. It's one of those questions here. I'm gonna throw some random military knowledge.
Space ships, not space planes. Right. So obviously,
I'm gonna throw some random military knowledge at you right now. Did you know the United States Air Force actually has less planes than any other branch of the military? It's true.
Logic.
even the Coast Guard has more ships or more planes and helicopters than the Air Force does.
It's like one of those questions where it's like, what color is the black box in planes?
Right.
Red. Or orange.
Yep.
Orange exactly. Or red.
Yeah, like exactly. Brightly colored so it can be found. So yeah, so you get her name, and I think that one more option. Let me find a good one. Let me look through some of my notes. Nope, not that planet. Nope, not that planet. Nope, not that planet.
We're running out of planets.
Yeah, I know. This is one of those things where it's like hard to like go through. What is No, not that. This.
Oh, I know, Paphos, right? Paphos.
Actually, they do have a lot of medical equipment. To be fair, they actually are pretty good in the medicine world.
You wanted absolute control over Felix, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think I got it. So the other option here is probably a far riskier one, but maybe not. So the other option you get is Gizikis. Gizikis is the planet on 0707, the homeworld of the pirates, right? Because of the remember, it's the whole like basically underwater world, right?
We're still cool with them, right?
Technically, you guys are cool with everyone.
Well, we didn't see our friend that we dropped off there get beheaded, so yeah, we think.
Yeah, so technically it's the homeworld of the Gachera Syndicate, but the reason why they probably come up in your search is because they specialize in like non-traditional reconstructions and stuff. They also have a pretty high level of cybernetic technology. Because they're pirates, and why give pirates peg legs when you can give them cyborg legs in sci-fi, right? Did you like that, Matt? Was that a good one? That was a good way to do it.
I couldn't possibly describe what I was just imagining, but yes, it's like a really some super advanced but still wooden peg leg.
Yeah.
That's I said a cybernetic peg leg, so it's still a peg leg,
yeah,
but it's like also a gun and everything else.
It doubles as a plasma lance when you pull it off. Yeah, 100%. So as far as like it probably when we were talking about like the reconstruction type of thing, they're probably known as some of the leaders in cybernetic technology aside from Yuri Pylos. Yuri Pylos obviously takes the cake with anything, but as Dr. Fisher said, that is pretty far away. So there, now you have a couple of leads.
Okie dokie. And then the only other small thing I want to do is just send a quick little note to Fizz giving him a status update, basically. Yeah. Just saying, completed our task, however, sidetracked, had to pick up my father, he's in bad shape, gonna bring him to Westwind. You know, that's where we'll be for a few days if you're around.
Yeah, can you roll a luck save for me? The thing with the Age of Sail. See, the thing with the Age of Sail is you might get lucky and they might just like be there, right? Because you have no idea where they are to start with. Mm-hmm. So you don't get an immediate reply. You can see that it's like pending in the outgoing, so that the next time a ship jumps out, it'll carry it to the wide stretches of the sector. But yeah, your message is sent. Make a note. Cool. So is that basically it for Gogo? Just the research on the doctors, or do you bring that to Fisher to get his opinion on those options?
I mean, since spending time in the med bay, I imagine that if I come across those things, I would ask him his thoughts for sure. I think probably the first one I would say is ask him if you've heard of the doctor by name.
Let's see if you've heard of the doctor. Can you roll me a culture Yuri Pylos with intelligence, please? Yes, I said that correctly. All great doctors start somewhere, and usually that place is Yuri Pylos.
9.
Were you actually asking what, or were you? Oh, you rolled a 9. I'm sorry.
You rolled a 9.
I was mesmerized by the new background. Yeah, you've definitely heard of Lai, of Dr. Zinnia before. Dr. Zinnia probably made a name for herself first on Yuri Pylos. And I think with a 9, you get enough information to know that she's not like not banished from the planet, but she was kind of extradited for kind of being a bit too overzealous with her desire to help. She probably got into some trouble with the authorities for, like, not testing new techniques on people, but, like, bringing in outside techniques, like gathering up information from other medical communities and using those on Eurypylos, which to Eurypylosians is like, no, we're the best. Like whatever we say, that's obviously the best way to do it. So eventually her business started, like, crumbling around her because she wasn't following the guidelines as the Eurypylosians deemed it. So she ended up leaving and going to work for Westwind instead. At probably relatively young age. So it's been probably a few years, but you know her probably through some of her case studies, right? You probably did some research on some of her case studies about like extracurricular medicine and stuff like that. And I would say that if you are a man of Eurypylos, you probably hold some reservations about that. But if you're a man of the sector, she's definitely respected in her field.
Yeah, she's alright.
Perfect.
Well, as long as she's better than you, we'll be good.
Oh, shit!
Shots fired.
You do realize I'm currently the only one keeping your father alive right now.
Shots returned.
I thought he was just going to point to the giant banner he's hung up that says "not a medical doctor" in the med bay at this point.
Cougar just laughs and she's like, I appreciate that, but I probably could have figured it out myself.
So
goes back to through her combat.
Yeah. Do you tell him about any of the either of the other options, either 0507 or 0707?
I think if need be, yes. In
Okay.
terms of, like, we're gonna go to Westwind.
We're gonna go to
see what
Westwind
the deal
first,
is
and then we'll
there.
figure it out.
If-
Okay, cool.
If it becomes like if it comes looking like we need to go somewhere else, then yes, of course.
Yeah, so obviously it's a perfect transition to just phase over to Dr. Fisher's perspective. So Dr. Fisher, what are you doing during the 3 days of travel?
So, I would like to complete the surgery for Chan, my research, but I do think it would be best to allow him to
Recuperate,
quote unquote, fully regain his strength. Question mark.
No, that's definitely a thing. Like, whenever you go into surgery, if you're not healthy when you start it, it's probably not going to go well.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and research the tan sickness that I'm currently infected with.
Yeah, and technically,
your personal affliction.
Yeah, technically,
is going to get some attention.
Gogo and Chan were also. Oh no, not Gogo. I'm sorry, Chan and no, just Chan was actually afflicted as well, but it doesn't seem to affect him in the same way it does you. Do you have a clock on that yet? Have I given you a clock on that yet?
It's just a 1.
Yeah, cool, perfect. So why don't you roll me I think it's very simply tech med with intelligence.
Does
what? Cut out.
You cut out for me.
No, you cut out for me. Tech med with intelligence, but you asked something.
Does my implant give me a +1?
Yes. Yep, your implant would definitely affect this. Damn.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, so previously I described it as possibly some form of parasitic infection. It wasn't necessarily like a how to describe this in terms that I understand. It wasn't necessarily some communicable disease. It seems to only have been so during like the later stages of whatever affliction was affecting them. And strangely enough, the only one that you witnessed it in was the brother, right? And it seems like only during like the very final stages of it was he afflicted. So, or was he infectious? So during your research, you discover that it is the infection has taken root in your nervous system. It seems to be affecting like fine motor control. In fact, probably like the epiphany here with the 14, right? The epiphany is as you're like conducting research, like your finger begins twitching, and you're not really sure why, and then you like wait a second, that's a symptom, not just some weird thing happening to me. And you can't find anything, even with the 14, you can't find anything on what might be causing this. The Tan, being very reclusive themselves, keep a lot of things to themselves, right? Like they don't really share a whole lot of information, obviously. But as you begin to look deeper into it, you realize that this is the type of disease that would sit dormant for days, weeks, maybe even months, and then in the span of probably 2 to 3 hours kill you. So it's good that you've caught it and that you understand that you are afflicted with it. Now, because it's just a 1 and you rolled a 14, you find that it is fairly easily treatable with like kind of your standard run-of-the-mill steroids, like just a steroid supplement that you have commonly in the med bay. And it seems strange that such a like aggressively deadly, like aggressively lethal disease is cured so simply. But during your research and over the course of the 3 days, you're able to take the steroid supplement and treat yourself, so you're not dying anymore.
Hooray.
And I think that your little piece of bonus information here is the reason why this is probably so easy for you to treat is because of the biology difference between yourself and the Tan. The Tan, I mean, obviously the Syriac look much different, so obviously they have a different biology, but maybe it takes you aback for a moment because the Tan are so almost human-like, just simply with like a different shade of skin and their weird ability to absorb moisture in the air, basically. That the biology must be very, very different between the two species internally. But you solved your problem, and it won't kill you.
Yay!
And then potentially,
Hooray.
while it's killing you, infect the rest of the crew. Because that's the only time it's able to be, transferred. Cool.
Get to live to meet another horde of bats.
Yes, live to meet another horde of nasty creatures that I will come up with at some other date.